My professor husband was taking a female student to a baby store while I was working tirelessly selling pies to support him. For this, I caused a scene at the lab. David was embarrassed by me, telling me to forgive his dad. Dad just made a mistake that all men make. Besides, how can you, in your 40s with a high school diploma, compare to a 20-year-old girl with a doctorate? In David's eyes, I was an unsophisticated housewife. But he didn't know that, for this family, every year, I'd throw away the gifts sent by the billionaire into the trash can. David forgot to block me from his Facebook post celebrating Robert's birthday. I clicked on it and saw Robert and the girl named Tiffany sitting close together, smiling happily. Filled with immense frustration, I video called David. After connecting, the screen shook wildly. Both dad and son were drunk. The camera focused on Robert, who was clearly intoxicated. He was hugging Tiffany and kissing her wildly, his hand reaching inappropriately towards the bottom of her skirt. I quickly recorded the intimate scene. Only when Tiffany's clothes were about to be torn did a server reluctantly approach to stop them. "Sir, this is a public area. Please don't do this." The server's appearance interrupted Robert's good mood. Tiffany, looking utterly charming, went limp and leaned to the side, complaining, "Such a killjoy." Robert doted on this vibrant young girl. He immediately took her hand, leaned close to her ear, and whispered something. Tiffany was amused. She repeatedly playfully hit Robert's chest. Soon after, she paid the bill and disappeared from my phone screen. Perhaps after paying, David was woken up by a nearby server. Afraid of exposing what I had seen that night, I immediately hung up the phone. I sat alone in the house, waiting until 4 in the morning. The dad and son finally came back, carrying a few boxes of takeout boxes, which they placed on the table. David saw the left over pies on the plate and said dismissively, "Mom, still eating these awful pies? I brought your favorites specially for you. Try them." I glanced lightly at the plastic boxes on the table and gave a self-deprecating bitter laugh. "The leftovers from your dad's birthday dinner are my favorite food?" David's eyes widened, and he rushed to explain, "These aren't leftovers." I held up my phone and opened the Facebook post he had personally shared. David was instantly speechless. The next second, he spoke with some resentment, "You just want to stay at that old pie shop all day. You can't enjoy the good life." Just as I was about to say something else, Robert suddenly interrupted. "Enough! You caused a scene at the lab at school today, and now you're causing a scene at home. Are you ever going to stop?" Robert's voice was loud, making the motion sensor light in the hallway turn on several floors up. He was referring to the scene I caused at the lab that morning, confronting him in front of his students about his affair. I had sat up almost all night, my mind full of thoughts of divorce. But I had sacrificed 20 years of my life, selling pies one bowl at a time, to support him in achieving his dream and becoming the highly respected Professor Robert. If I divorced him as soon as I found out about his affair, wouldn't that just make things easy for that pair of scumbags? With his dad backing him, David became arrogant and lectured me, "Mom, actually, a lot of people at school secretly like Dad. He's held back for 20 years without making a mistake. He's already a good man. And frankly, married to such a successful man, you should be grateful he hasn't divorced you yet." Suppressing the urge to slap David across the face, I returned to my room. As I backed up the compromising video I had watched hundreds of times, the sound of dad and son cheering while watching a ball game came from the living room. To this day, neither of them had offered me a single apology. Suddenly, I felt that I needed to live my life differently. Robert's snoring was like thunder. Besides being kept awake by it, the scene of causing a scene at the lab yesterday morning kept replaying in my mind. The daughter of the diner next door told me she had bumped into our Professor Robert walking with a young girl at a baby store, and they were very close. Unwilling to believe it, I even defended Robert. Our old Robert is in the lab all day. Where would he have time to go shopping? But only after she showed me the photos she had taken did I become completely enraged and rushed to the lab to confront him. "Who is that young girl you were holding hands with?" At these words, several students in the lab all turned their gaze towards a young girl in the corner. Everyone was wearing lab protective gear. Only she was sitting there drinking bubble tea in a short black dress. Robert's face turned dark, and he dragged me out of the lab by force. I had never seen him so angry. His eyes seemed to be shooting knives at me. He couldn't vent his anger elsewhere, so he pointed at the pink apron I hadn't had time to take off and yelled, "You're supposed to be a professor's wife, but you wear this raggedy apron everywhere you go. You're like a bitter woman every day and you don't take care of the family at all. Even if I'm having something with someone else, it's because you haven't fulfilled your duties as a wife." Hearing that I had rushed to the lab, David, who was studying at the university, also arrived late. Seeing me from a distance, he started complaining, "Mom, please go home, don't embarrass yourself here. Dad is a big professor, are you trying to ruin our family? Besides, you can't completely blame Dad. All you do on your Facebook post is post about selling pies or repost tacky videos, it's vulgar." For a moment, I was stunned. I hadn't realized that my years of dedication were so insignificant in their eyes. I don't know how I made it back to the pie shop. I only felt my legs give out, and I completely fainted at the entrance of the pie shop. When I woke up again, my neighbor had helped me back home. The neighbor complained, "I called your old Robert to tell him you fainted. It's only a 10-minute walk from the school to home, but he didn't come back for 3 hours." Looking at Robert's face on the pillow, I really had no desire to continue sleeping. At dawn, I stood alone in front of the mirror, examining myself. The burden of life kept me busy like a non-stop spinning top. Obvious nasolabial folds and dull, yellow skin made me look completely lifeless. And that girl's skin was flawless, her large, clear eyes seeming untouched by worldly desires. Yet, every time I walked downstairs and saw the light on in his study, I always felt life was full of hope. 40-year-old Robert looked less than 30. Sometimes, when walking on the street, I would even be mistaken for Robert's elder. "Honey, here's your apology gift. Not angry anymore, right?" Robert heard the movement and appeared behind me soon after, fawningly putting a pearl necklace on me. This was the first gift I had ever received from Robert, but my heart was filled with bitterness. I stared at the pearl necklace in my hand, feeling a mix of emotions. Seeing I didn't react, he took it as a sign I was appeased, gently placed a kiss I found disgusting on me, and went back to bed to rest. Beep beep. Robert's phone, which was charging in the living room, rang early in the morning. I saw the profile picture was the girl's own selfie. Several messages she sent popped up. "Did you appease the professor's wife? She didn't cause any more trouble after receiving the gift, did she? That style of necklace is too old-fashioned, even my grandma wouldn't wear it. Next time, just transfer the money directly and I'll buy it myself." I put the phone back in its place. While eating breakfast, Robert kept staring at his phone, smiling foolishly. Just as I was pouring a cup of drinking tea, a bill notification arrived for $18,888 spent from our joint account. I took the bill and asked him where the money had gone. He replied indifferently, "Lab expenses were short, I covered a bit." Knowing he was hiding something, I still reluctantly pressed, "This card has the money I saved from selling pies. David is getting married soon, where's your salary from the past few years?" Robert's face flushed. He pointed at the necklace around my neck. "Isn't my salary hanging on your neck? I don't know why you've become so stingy as you've gotten older. You never objected before when I used money for lab expenses." Yes, everyone on the streets and alleys praised me for having a good life, married to a big professor. If Robert hadn't gone rotten, I might have been proud of him my whole life. I walked out, throwing the pearl necklace into the river under the bridge. Regardless of how gold prices were soaring recently, I spent $25,000 in one go to buy myself a set of expensive gold jewelry. Back then, Robert was poor and only bought me one new dress for our wedding. He felt very guilty then and said he would save money to buy me gold jewelry later. 20 years passed, and the past had long vanished with the wind. Feeling good after buying the gold jewelry, I rarely posted on Facebook post. The caption read, "Always remember to love yourself." Jessica, David's future wife, suddenly liked the post. The next second, she forwarded the picture in the family group chat and said, "Thank you, Mom." The previously quiet family group chat instantly exploded with messages thanking me, the future mother-in-law. I was a bit stunned, feeling pressured to give in and produce the gold jewelry. But then I remembered the scene last night of David pulling his dad downstairs to buy cigarettes. He said smugly, "We're like a father-son team, one playing the good cop, one playing the bad cop. We totally fooled Mom, didn't we?" Look at her face when she saw that pearl necklace. She'll forget about any mistress, third or fourth. Standing in the shadow on the third-floor balcony, I heard David's words crystal clear. He was beaming proudly, teasing his dad, "You're an old hand now. Just try not to get caught by Mom again." If I hadn't heard those words, I might have really gone along with it and given the gold jewelry to my future daughter-in-law. Unfortunately, I sent a voice message. "Sorry, Jessica, this wasn't bought for you. This is a gift I bought for myself." David's phone was about to explode with calls. When I got home, both dad and son were waiting for me. David put on his fawning look first. "Mom, don't make a fuss. Hurry up and show us the set of expensive gold jewelry you bought for Jessica. If she doesn't like the style, I can still exchange it." I sat on the sofa, drinking tea, speaking in a calm voice. "I'm not kidding. I bought it for myself." Hearing this, David was instantly furious. "You're so old, who are you going to wear it for? It's a waste to keep it." Robert was also very confused, not expecting me to be serious. "David's right. You're always wearing gloves selling pies, you won't have a chance to wear it. You might as well give it to Jessica as her set of expensive gold jewelry." I stared into Robert's eyes, each word landing heavily. "Robert, let's get a divorce." A flicker of confusion crossed his eyes, but it was quickly replaced by impatience. "David's getting married soon. Causing a scene like this is not acting like an elder at all. At this age, do you really expect me to pluck stars and the moon for you? To be romantic with you?" In their eyes, I was an irresponsible mom, a withered and bitter wife, but never Sarah. So, no matter what I said, they wouldn't care. David threw a tantrum, saying he would cut ties with me if I didn't give the gold jewelry to Jessica. Dad and son stomped their feet in anger and slammed the door, going out to eat at a restaurant. I locked myself in the room, unable to stop crying. Michael's phone call came after a year of silence. This time, sobbing uncontrollably, I answered. The man on the other side was silent for a few seconds, followed by a question spoken through clenched teeth. "Has he been treating you badly?" I hung a sign on the pie shop that said "Last week of business." I planned to follow Michael's suggestion and take a break for a while. 6 years ago, he had already advised me. With the pie shop being so famous, he could help me expand it into a chain. "Sarah, that way you won't have to work so hard." Michael's casual words of concern were more meaningful than anything said by the two closest people to me. Back then, because Michael was the potential chain partner, I was afraid Robert would misunderstand and think I was rekindling my relationship with my first love, so I immediately refused. But now, whatever he felt didn't matter anymore. As soon as I opened the shop that morning, I saw a familiar face. She was deliberately wearing the pearl necklace. Seeing my gaze on her neck, she leaned in close and greeted me warmly. "Professor's wife, my name is Tiffany. I'm Professor Roberts' most outstanding student." She deliberately emphasized the word student to provoke me. "Oh, Oliver, cat, why are you here?" Tiffany picked up the cat Robert had given me and affectionately cuddled it. So Professor Robert settled this little cat at the pie shop. I was afraid he might give it away to someone else. Suppressing my anger, I lowered my head and continued rolling pie wrappers. "That little cat," David had said, "was specifically bought for me." Both dad and son suffered from allergies and couldn't stand cat hair. So when David said he was worried I would be lonely staying at the shop all day and suggested getting a cat to keep me company, I was touched. It turned out that everything dad and son were willing to endure was just to make Tiffany happy. "What do you want here?" I asked her. Tiffany widened her clear, innocent eyes and said playfully, "Of course, I came to buy some of Professor's wife's pies." I immediately called Robert and told him to deal with it himself. Otherwise, if I handled it, his reputation would be ruined instantly. Robert arrived at the pie shop, breathless, in just 4 minutes. He subtly tugged at Tiffany's sleeve, signaling her to stop making a scene. But Tiffany, instead, raised her voice. "Old Robert, the baby in my belly wants to eat pies fed by Dad himself. Robert clearly panicked and tried to pull me outside. But I didn't give him the chance. I took out the divorce papers I had prepared from my bag and handed them to him. Sign them. It's for the best for all three of us. Robert didn't dare take them, only whispering to persuade me, David is about to get married, don't cause trouble at this critical moment. I ignored him, slammed the divorce papers onto the table, and turned to leave. For the first time, I realized how mediocre and ordinary the man in front of me was. Robert initially wanted to close the pie shop door to talk things over privately with the three of us. But as curious eyes peered out from the street/alley, a uniquely designed sports car pulled up precisely at 11 o'clock at the entrance of the street/alley. Seeing the face of the middle-aged man who got out of the car, Robert's expression suddenly stiffened. Under his angry gaze, I untied my apron. Sorry, I have an appointment today. Michael and I sat at a flower cafe on the mountaintop, gazing at the mountain scenery. The sunlight and dew in the forest became the best medicine to heal the pain of divorce. During this time, I received countless text messages from Robert, not a single one an apology. It seemed Michael's appearance had once again struck a nerve with him. Michael, as a local entrepreneur and philanthropist, often appeared in local news. Robert knew about my relationship with him. Every time he saw him, he would impatiently turn off the TV. He was like a thorn, deeply embedded in Robert's vain heart. If Michael hadn't told me that his promise to return and marry me after 3 years in the army wasn't broken, but rather because his elderly parents fell gravely ill, he hurried back home after being discharged, sending me a hasty explanatory letter. Until now, I had thought I was just a foolish girl who waited for 3 years. Michael looked a little puzzled. Sarah, why weren't you willing to wait for me for 2 more months back then? Maybe we wouldn't have missed out on these past 20-something years. I smiled with relief and said, it doesn't matter anymore. Back then, to repay me for letting him eat pies for free at the shop, Robert had specially run errands for me to pick up letters from the post office. As for why I didn't receive it, it was probably because of Robert. Because he had accompanied me at the train station, waiting for 3 whole days. I waited until I was crying at the station entrance. Robert took my hand and seized the opportunity to propose. My 20 years of my life had been stolen by such a hypocritical man. Thinking about it made me feel ridiculous. Sarah, I haven't married all these years. Michael sat across from me, looking at me sincerely. I awkwardly took a sip of drinking tea. Robert hasn't agreed to divorce yet. Besides, I don't want to immediately jump into another relationship right after leaving a marriage. My implied rejection, I thought, was very clear to him. Furthermore, he had worked hard all these years to become a well-known business executive with billion-dollar assets to his name. And I was just a pie shop owner who worked tirelessly from morning till night. This gap in status, both in the eyes of others and myself, was truly difficult to accept. Michael didn't press further, only handing me a business card. This is the best lawyer I could find for you. He can win any divorce case. Sarah, have you been cheating for a long time? If David knew his mom was a woman who played the field, what would he think of you? I'm giving you one chance. Come home immediately. Otherwise, if David finds out about these shameful things, it won't be so easy for him to forgive you. Robert's new wave of text messages bombardment began again. I took a deep breath, deleting them one by one until I was completely impatient. Ultimately, Robert had simply been living too comfortably. So I decided to call the agent I knew. Mr. Evans, agent, tomorrow during work hours, go to the building management, get the key, and give me an appraisal for that house. There's a 10% discount if purchased within 3 days. Because the house was near the college town, and mine was a special price property, there were quite a few interested buyers. After the buyer's information was confirmed, I contacted a moving company and went back myself while no one was home. Upon entering, the house was filled with the scent of perfume. This was definitely not something Dad and son would use, and David's fiancée was allergic to alcohol and didn't wear perfume much. When I walked into the master bedroom and smelled a stronger scent, everything became clear. The scattered lace lingerie on the bedsheets told me who the owner of this perfume scent was. Sir/guys, workers, please throw all the items in the room into the trash heap across the street downstairs. The renovation workers were very efficient, clearing everything out in less than 3 hours. After the change the lock worker was finished, I gave the new key to the building management. Michael helped me secure quite a few chain store deals. Unexpectedly, I received a full $320,000. At first, I thought Michael was giving me charity, adding his own money to the $320,000. It wasn't until he honestly showed me the wire transfer details from various banks and the cooperation agreements that I realized this was actually true. Adding the $200,000 from selling the house and my savings, I could say I was set for life, financially secure. To please myself, I immediately got a year-long beauty salon membership and enjoyed myself. The young girl at the beauty salon, grateful for the boost to her sales, shared her beauty secrets and recommended many useful makeup products to me. I took the list and went mall to mall, browsing. Before, dressed in drab clothes, I wouldn't have received much attention or good service in stores. But now, completely refreshed from head to toe, I clearly received better treatment. Robert saw the new digital lock on the door and knew I had been back. He called me. "You changed the lock and didn't even tell me. What's the code?" I sold the house. From the moment I answered his phone call, I felt my good mood for the day was ruined. The man on the other end of the line finally understood that I was serious about getting a divorce. He suddenly started talking softly. "Sarah, don't make a scene." I didn't want to continue and finally told him 2 things. First, sign the divorce papers within a week, or I will hire a divorce lawyer and take your student's matter to court as well. You'll only lose more. Second, your and David's things are in the basement. Clean them out within 2 days, or I'll have the garbage collectors come and take them. Robert didn't get a chance to speak. I hung up the phone, blocked and deleted. The young woman who had just helped me pick out lipstick nearby looked at me with admiration. I felt a little self-conscious from being watched. I looked at my face in the mirror and asked, puzzled, "What's wrong?" The young woman handed me the lipstick she was holding and said timidly, "Seeing you get divorced so decisively reminded me of my mom. She doesn't have your courage. She keeps dragging things out, unwilling to leave my dad who has a child with another woman outside." I took a deep breath, not intending to share my own experiences to comfort her. I simply picked out 2 lipsticks of the exact same color and prepared to pay. "Ma'am, these colors are the same. You could pick a different color you like," she reminded kindly. I paid without hesitation. I placed the other gift bag in her hand. "It's for your mom. If she can't get love from her dad, she'll be happy to get love from her daughter. I wish you both the life you want." Because I was afraid Robert would keep stalling, I sent him the compromising video of him and Tiffany being intimate in public that I had saved on my phone. Within a few days, he signed the divorce papers and told me to come get them. I asked him to mail them to me, but I didn't expect him to track me down by the address. As soon as I opened the door, he rushed straight into the apartment I had just bought. Where is he? Where is he hiding? Frowning, I picked up the phone to call security to kick him out. He saw several male business owners sitting in the reception room/living area of the apartment who had come to discuss chain store partnerships. His hand trembling, he pointed at them and asked me, in broad daylight, "You're in a room with several men? Sarah, you're getting more and more shameless." Michael, who had come downstairs to get documents, arrived at the door just in time to hear Robert's words. He walked in, his face displeased, and said, "Get out." Robert scoffed dismissively, deliberately placing the divorce papers on the table and mocking, "You care so much about Sarah, but wasn't she just someone I used for over 20 years before you got her? Unlike me, I lost my wife who shared hardship, but I can get a young lover." Michael, who was usually refined and calm, couldn't help but step forward and give him a severe beating. The others who heard his words also stood up for me. Anyway, for this kind of trashy man, whether it was one person or a group, a beating was deserved. Robert got up from the ground, spitting blood. He didn't understand why Michael would beat him up for me. "Back then, all I did was intercept a letter from you, and she turned around and married me. Now that she's old and faded, you find her desirable? Wake up! She's just after your money." Robert spoke with conviction, completely unaware that he was stepping on Michael's long-held pain. You took my letter back then? Michael asked through clenched teeth. Seeing the dark clouds gathering on Michael's face and a powerful pressure about to erupt on him again, Robert adjusted his gold-rimmed glasses and swallowed. Seeing the security guards arriving at the door, he scurried out, his retreating figure looking ridiculous. Despite the unexpected incident with Robert, Michael's strong endorsement ensured the business discussions went very smoothly. Looking at the $100,000 contract I had just signed, I couldn't help but show a money-grubbing face dreaming of making a fortune. Michael couldn't help but let out a chuckle. I looked up and saw him holding a folder, but his gaze was fixed on my every move. The atmosphere became a little awkward. He cleared his throat and asked tentatively, "This year's Thanksgiving dinner, want to come to my place?" I teased him, "Thanksgiving dinner is still more than half a year away. What's the rush? It's just so I can learn some of your favorite dishes in advance and show off my cooking skills then." The dignified middle-aged business executive was holding a folder upside down, looking at me expectantly. His earnest appearance made me laugh and cry at the same time. "Then you better cook well. Don't disappoint me." My acceptance was unexpected for Michael. Seeing his confident enthusiasm as he immediately started listing menu items, I suddenly felt that not only was the sun shining today, but life was also slow. Becoming brighter. 6 months later, everything around me had changed dramatically. I had become a rising female entrepreneur with a chain business. I had learned a lot about running a business from Michael and was busy from morning till night, all just to explore my small business empire little by little and pursue my own value. When I returned to the college town to deal with the old shop, I ran into some old neighbors who started chatting with me. "Did you know, your old Robert was suspended last week?" Hearing this, I was a little surprised. I stopped and listened as they told me about his recent situation. After Robert divorced me, he moved in with Tiffany immediately. Originally, his students were all well-behaved and kept quiet about their professor dating a fellow student. To satisfy Tiffany's demands, Robert took the risk of adding Tiffany's name as an author to someone else's research findings. The students, who had been silently enduring this theft of achievements, finally couldn't take it anymore. Emily collected evidence and exposed Robert's actions of protecting and substituting names. Along with that, the story of his extramarital affair with his student and driving away his wife who shared hardship was publicized, which greatly angered the university. Tiffany was called in for investigation. Even with 10 mouths, she couldn't explain who the baby's father was. Adding insult to injury, during his suspension, Robert was found to have embezzled lab funds and was completely fired, required to return the money. After selling the house he had just bought, he took Tiffany and squeezed into the 10-square-meter rental room David was living in. Like his dad, David had been dumped after flirting with a female classmate. Knowing I had money from my business, he would beg for money and played the victim every day. But I remained unmoved, only giving him $100 per month. After all, he was an able-bodied adult. If he just squeezed in his own time, he could support himself. Over time, David also saw him as a burden and no longer saw Robert as his idol. As soon as Tiffany gave birth to the child, she couldn't stand it anymore and ran off with another man. In such destitution, he could only humble himself and tutored elementary school students. But he was criticized for not teaching well. Now, he accidentally got into a car accident and was lying at home, dependent on David for support. Knowing these things, I initially felt a slight stir. But as I was leaving, when I bumped into Robert and David in the street/alley, I still felt immense disgust for this dad and son pair and quickened my pace, leaving them behind and turning away. After all, they had thoroughly disappointed me. "Mom, Dad had a car accident." David's voice came from behind, distant. I focused my eyes and saw there was indeed a car stopped by the side of the road. The driver frantically took Robert, who was lying on the ground, to the hospital. The doctor said he only had a minor bone fracture and some brain concussion from falling to the ground. But after observation, they found Robert had amnesia, remembering only me. "Dad, do you remember me? I'm your son, David." David waved his hand, but Robert looked completely unfamiliar. "My wife, Sarah, isn't pregnant yet. You're not my son." He looked at my face and said affectionately, "Honey, I'm hungry." I just found it inexplicable, rolling my eyes at the man who acted like a giant baby, metaphor for immature adult. If you're hungry, find your mom. Why are you looking for me? David insisted on pulling me to see his living environment. As soon as I stepped in, there was a filthy mess. None of the pots and pans were clean, and even someone's socks were worn until they were stiff and covered in grime, giving off a deadly smell. Mom, you can be angry, but aren't I your biological son? Look at where I live now. No other mom I know could be this cruel. I pinched my nose in disgust and retorted, look at where you live. Even cockroaches would hold their noses and quickly take their whole family to immigrate to another country. Hearing the commotion, the neighbor next door brought the child Tiffany had given birth to. The little infant's face was terribly thin, still asleep in swaddling clothes. She held out her hand towards Robert, 200 a day. I watched the baby for 3 days, 600 total. Robert looked confused and bewildered, asking, "What's $600? The neighbor got a little agitated and started yelled abuse directly at us. What do you mean? Are you trying to avoid paying? The baby's cries started, giving me a headache. I really couldn't stand being there and just wanted to leave. David suddenly grabbed my hand, his eyes red, and pleaded, Mom, I really can't handle this big mess Dad created alone. Please don't leave me. I laughed in anger. You cut ties with me back then. You have to carry the sky yourself now. I slammed the door and left them dad and son to face the neighbor demanding money. But before I even got out of the street/alley, I realized I had forgotten my bag. When I returned halfway, I heard dad and son laughing gleefully from a distance. Dad, I didn't expect Mom to still have some cash in her bag. Robert was a bit disappointed, only thinking about this little bit of money. Mom has money now from her business, you need to cooperate with me. David boasted to Robert confidently, Mom talks tough but is soft-hearted. I just need to use a little trick, and she'll slowly come back. Then you pretend to have amnesia, and I'll be responsible for awakening her motherly love. We'll have a good life then. Hearing these words, I stood at the doorway, clenching my fists. Soon, I disappeared into the old apartment building. Since they were rotten to the core, I shouldn't be soft-hearted. I made dad and son wait 3 days, but they never heard from me. As the end of the month approached and rent was due, Robert simply brought his 2 sons and knocked on my door. Mom, you live in such a nice place all by yourself, and you make us dad and son live in that rat's nest? David handed me his half-brother, same father, different mother, a look of unhappiness on his face. This little burden, I really want to throw him away halfway. I raised an eyebrow and asked meaningfully, didn't you have amnesia? How did you find my place? David chuckled and proactively handed me the bag from last time. Dad used to write your address on paper and kept it in his wallet. That's how we used it. See how thoughtful your son is? He brought your bag back. Not a single cent is missing from it. He leaned in close to my face, examining it carefully and praised, Mom, your skin is flawless now, you look much younger. My wife is, of course, the most beautiful. Honey, I missed you so much these past few days. Robert said these disgusting sweet words with a smiling face, then stepped forward to give me a hug. I raised the bag in my hand, quickly moving away to avoid him. Indeed, to show off, Dad and son had resisted touching the money inside. I took a deep breath and pretended to be delighted, suggesting to Dad and son, I've made a reservation for dinner. Let's go together. Dad and son hadn't had a good meal in a long time, so they were naturally more than willing. Unfortunately, when I took them to a restaurant/venue, the show had just begun. As I was busy looking at the menu, a man and a woman suddenly entered the restaurant/venue and sat down at the table next to us. By the time Robert and Tiffany recognized each other, it was already awkward for them to leave. Tiffany quickly turned her back to us, her body tense, ready to run at any moment. What's wrong? Do you know them? I couldn't help but turn my head, scaring Dad and son into quickly drawing my attention back to ordering. David was the first T. Oh, react. He grabbed his dad and quickly explained to me, Dad's brain concussion hasn't fully recovered these past couple of days, he's probably feeling a bit unwell for a moment. Reminded by David, Robert could only endure, trying his best not to pay attention to the situation over there. But Tiffany was having a much harder time. The man who was with Tiffany suddenly asked, "Honey, have you given birth before? I feel like your size there isn't right." Tiffany forced a smile and explained softly, bracing herself, "How could that be? It's my first time." Robert scoffed, unable to resist muttering a sarcastic remark. These women nowadays, they tell everyone it's their first time. Tiffany still didn't dare turn around, pulling the man and saying she wanted to change places. But after hearing that, the man wasn't willing to leave. He immediately turned around and started yelled abuse. "Did you eat shit? Your mouth smells so bad." Robert's face instantly turned red. He sprang up and grabbed the man by the collar, questioning Tiffany, "Was it because of him that you abandoned me and the child?" But Robert had messed with the wrong person. The man was Tony, gym owner. With little effort, Tony, gym owner, easily threw Robert, who was all show, to the ground. Tiffany pretended to be scared, urging the man to quickly take her and leave. But Tony, gym owner, pushed her away as well and greeted me. "Miss Sarah, if you hadn't warned me, I would have been fooled by this damn bitch." Initially, I had planned to just wash my hands of the whole thing, but Michael helped me look into it and found that Tiffany was currently also engaged in fraudulent activities. Like dad, like son. I decided to contact Tony, gym owner, who had been somewhat skeptical, and met up today. After Robert regained his senses, he looked at me in disbelief. "Honey, I really want you to forgive me." I glanced at him indifferently. Seeing how miserable you were, I actually considered helping you out. Too bad you're not worthy. David was very opportunistic. Knowing that his dad couldn't be forgiven, he immediately followed behind me and pushed the baby stroller towards Robert. "You guys have been bullying Mom for so long, you deserve some retribution." I scoffed. "If Mom were still selling pies in that street/alley, she probably wouldn't hear you say that in her lifetime." Robert was unwilling to give up and tried to play the emotional card again, but Tony, gym owner, stopped him. He called out helplessly, "Are you really that heartless, to just leave us behind?" Holding my bag, I turned around and smiled faintly, saying the last words I would ever speak to Robert. "Even if you messed up your main life, didn't you start a second chance? I wish you happiness, Robert." By the time I left and got into Michael's car, Robert was pulling Tiffany's hair, not letting her leave. He was taking out all the anger of losing everything on her. I rolled up the car window. My stomach growled. "Let's go. Let's try your cooking skills in advance." Hearing this, Michael's previously worried face instantly lit up with energy. "Okay. I'll make your favorite grilled salmon, favorite dish." I closed my eyes for a nap, images of the past flashing through my mind. But this time, I wouldn't cry alone. Because I had realized that happiness is something you choose yourself. And my happiness seemed to be right beside me.